You know, the term czar comes from Caesar. Caesar was the ruler of ancient Rome, and that's where we get the term czar. And the czar was the leader of Russia. Well, President Obama has appointed far more policy czars than any other president in history. None of them need Senate confirmation, and that has some members of Congress ready to take action. Our correspondent David Brody has that story from Washington.
The White House has heard the chatter that the president is pulling an end-run power grab by appointing policy czars that don't require Senate confirmation, thus not held accountable by Congress. In this administration, there are dozens of them, everything from a pay czar to a car czar. There's even a Guantanamo closure czar. The president has even joked about the volume of czars in his administration.
ABC is planning a series called Dancing with the Czars.
But it's no laughing matter to some, especially at those town halls last month.
I think you need to tell President Obama that you're exercising your congressional oversight, that there are no czars in America. Thank you.
Some Republican congressmen are taking action.
This czar issue came up probably second behind the health care issue.
Congressman Tom Rooney is co-sponsoring a bill that says if you're a policy czar that hasn't been confirmed by the Senate, then you get no salary and no funds whatsoever from Congress.
When you're talking about somebody that reports directly to the president, we need to take a serious look. The courts need to take a serious look, interpret the Constitution, look at czars specifically, and determine where they fit.
There's more pushback on the Hill. Congressman Patrick McHenry is calling for all of Obama's czars to testify before Congress about their authority and responsibilities. Congressman Mike Pence wants the president to suspend any more czar appointments until Congress can determine the constitutionality of them. Even longtime Democratic senators like Russ Feingold and Robert Byrd have a problem with it. Byrd sent a letter to Obama saying, quote, "The rapid and easy accumulation of power by White House staff can threaten the constitutional system of checks and balances."
Anybody who has real policy-making power that goes beyond giving advice to the president ought to have Senate confirmation.
Since the days of President Richard Nixon, there have always been czars, just not at this alarming rate.
It's a poor example of what was promised to be a new era of transparency. It's a poor way to manage the government, and it's the most visible symptom of this administration's 8-month record of too many Washington takeovers.
Congressman Jack Kingston, a fierce critic of the president on this issue, is keeping a record on his website. This is the way he tallies it. Ronald Reagan had 3 in 8 years, George W. Bush 14 in 8 years, President Obama 34 in just 6 months. Now, it's a disputable number because some of those were already czar appointments created by the Bush administration. Plus, some folks on the list, like science czar John Holdren, have actually been confirmed by the Senate.
If the argument is that this is some kind of indication of creeping big government, it just seems like, it's 900th on the list. I mean, something like holding people without a right to trial or asserting the state secrets privilege strikes me as a much, much bigger threat to liberty than whether some mid-level bureaucrat inside the Council of Environmental Quality is called by the media a czar or not.
The White House says this is simply a case of a president who has so many policy initiatives that he needs a lot of folks to help with that agenda. Whatever it is definitely a bold new way of doing business.
This is a management philosophy issue as much as anything else. Where are you going to put the locus of decision making?
The White House is determined not to let this czar story spin out of control. The administration has posted a myth versus reality response on whitehouse.gov. And White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs points out that the loudest Republican critics now weren't complaining of czars during the Bush administration.
I think it's been somewhat remarkable that in previous administrations, the so-called criticism of this has been a bit deafening. The silence has been deafening, only to have it come around as a political issue now.
The truth is, some czars carry more clout and policy decision power than others. For example, Green Job czar Van Jones resigned after conservatives brought to light his past controversial statements and actions, but he didn't hold much power. Yet energy czar Carol Browner does, and she may be the next target for conservatives. She used to be a member of Socialist International, which claims to support socialism and is very critical of U.S. policies. Also, FCC diversity czar Mark Lloyd is on the conservative radar, too, for pushing mandatory diversity in broadcast station ownership and requirements for alternative viewpoints on the radio.
There are some questions of some people who may have a lot of power who are not being held accountable when they should, because there isn't a Senate confirmation process. But we shouldn't push this too far.
But for conservatives who see the president as a big government socialist, the push has only just begun. David Brody, CBN News, Washington.
It's an end run around the Constitution. There's no question about it. And Obama just wants to take on everything. That's his problem. He wants to take on everything. He thinks he's absolutely brilliant, and he thinks he can do everything all at once.
Yeah. Well, you said yesterday that there was the potential problem of overexposure, and
yes.
I think we're there already.
Yes.
However, the fact that a president can appoint people to positions of authority where they report directly to the White House with no congressional oversight is just scary.
Well, if he wants an advisor, he's got an advisor to tell him, oh, hey, Barack, here's the best course. That's okay. You can have kitchen cabinets and everything else. But when these guys actually have power and they begin to make policy decisions, that Carol Browner used to head up the EPA office, I believe, in California. She is, and if she is a socialist, I didn't know that, but our story says she.
I mean,
oh, it's terrible. But I mean, when these guys take over policy and they call and they say this is the White House calling, it sends chills up and down the bureaucracy. Make no mistake about it. You get a telephone call, this is the White House.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say what level of White House, it's White House. And then they have stationery, it says the White House. And so people don't know whether or not they've been confirmed or how much authority they have. They're White House.
Yeah. Well, despite what you hear, be concerned, be very concerned.
Sure.
Right?
Well, it's going to be one more thing that's going to trip him up. Terry, we've got presidential overreach, too much exposure on the media, too many initiatives at the same time. I mean, it's a hubris or whatever term you want to give, but it's just incredible. This overreach is there, and it's going to kill him sooner or later. I mean, in a figurative sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.